is up, everybody, and welcome to the Casual Wrestling Community Show. I am your host, the Notorious Nerdy D, and I am not joined tonight by the co-host of the show, Level Up Lauren. She is feeling under the weather. We actually recorded an entire episode yesterday, and when we went back to check it, we actually posted it. A couple of you might have noticed there was no audio. So I am here doing this show solo tonight. I'm going to recap basically everything I talked about yesterday, just do it all over again. But she is under the weather. She will be back next week. So we will truck forward without her tonight. So if you are listening on podcast networks or watching on YouTube, make sure to like and leave a comment on this week's episode. I will still be doing another 7 questions this week. But before we get to that, it was a quiet week for me. As far as comments go, I like to use this opening monologue to kind of address what happened in the previous week. And there wasn't a lot of pushback on anything I said last week. And I don't know, sometimes I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if more people agreed with me or people are just have started to stop caring what I'm saying. I feel like it's that people agreed with more of what I said last week. But we still pushback from the previous Dominic Mysterio things I have said. People still defending Dominic. I'm getting a plethora of comments telling me how much you guys love Dominic Mysterio, except there's no reason. You don't give me the reason. Give me the reason you love Dominic Mysterio. What is it about Dominic Mysterio that has you guys so excited? Because I still can't see it. I was sent a couple videos this week. There were a couple videos sent to me, one by a Mr. McMahon on TikTok, and I'm not going to show the video because I don't want to pile on to Dominic, but it showed Dominic in a match, seemingly a live event match. He didn't look real good. He didn't look real great. And the boy's still looking chunky, and it looks like it's affecting his performance. He did some kind of jump off of the side apron. It didn't look pretty. So y'all are going to have to explain to me what it is. Why are y'all defending him so much? I don't hate Dominic. My only comment on Dominic has ever been is that he could probably use another stint in NXT. So there's that. The only other thing that I've noticed in the comment section of my videos lately is I've talked a little bit about Britt Baker. And I've noticed that anytime I talk about Britt Baker, there's an immediate pushback from both sides of the aisle. I get pushback from the WWE side, but I'm also getting pushback from the AEW side. And I don't understand it. I am a big Britt Baker fan. So when everybody says I hate AEW, I don't hate AEW, and that'll lead into our first question of the night. But I'm a big Britt Baker fan. So I've kind of taken the time. And I wanted to take the time, and I sat down, and I wanted to work through in my brain. The way my brain works is I have to work through situations. When somebody doesn't like something, I don't like to just assume they don't like it. I have to break down why wouldn't they like the things I like? And I think the thing about Britt Baker, this is the best explanation I could come up with, is that she scares WWE fans. She scares the WWE fans because Britt Baker represents everything that AEW could be if they just built a company around superstars that were capable like Britt Baker. People that are not just 100% hardcore wrestlers. And as far as AEW fans go, AEW fans, there's a group that's behind her, but there's also a group that's not behind her. And the group that's not behind her, I believe that she's not flippy flip enough. She's not a hardcore wrestler enough. She's more from the WWE mold. So AEW fans don't give her enough credit for her wrestling ability. And I think WWE fans tend to be a little bit afraid of what she represents. I think if she came to WWE fans would immediately flip their attitude and begin to embrace her. But it got me thinking a little bit. It got me thinking about this show. And it got me thinking about how I'm always arguing with the quote unquote IWC creators and IWC audience. And it really made me think, like, I am a casual wrestling podcaster, 100%. I believe that through and through. It's not a gimmick. I don't say it. It's not fun. It wasn't a catchy thing. I watch wrestling from a casual fan's perspective. Now, I'm a smarter casual fan. I know more than the most casual fans, but I still view the product from a casual point of view. And I kind of took the time to sit down and say, well, what makes somebody a casual fan? What different? Because I am somebody who makes internet commentary. So doesn't that make me an IWC member? And I don't think so. I think that you can define what a casual wrestling fan is. And I think I kind of placed the mindset of a casual wrestling fan. I tried to put it down on paper. And what I came up with, I think there's 4 major components to a professional wrestler. This is just I just came up with this, okay? 4 components. I believe you have mic skills, personality, you have wrestling ability, you have size, you have look. That's the 4 main things that we either decide, do we like or dislike a professional wrestler? And I think a casual wrestling fan, I think we place priority, or I'll speak for myself, I place priority. Number 1, the first thing I look for in a wrestler that I like or dislike is their mic skills, is their ability to portray a personality, is their ability to get me to buy into what they're saying, to who they are. So I think that, to me, that is the most important thing in a professional wrestler. Then second to me is, how do they look? Do they have a look that's intriguing? Do they not just look like Joe Schmo off the street? I get people go, this is 2022, this is more the time of just non-character wrestling, but look, the characters are the ones that exceed. Even if it's as slight a character as being the head of the table, that's still a character. Riddle is still a character. They're not necessarily just playing themselves. Riddle may be a bad example, but I look for people who are an intensified, at least, character of themselves. Thirdly, I'd say size. Size is important to me. I like the Drew McIntyres. I like Roman Reigns. I like Brock Lesnar. I like Braun Strowman. I like the guys that I look at in the ring and go, those are big giants. Those are gladiators. Those are warriors. Those aren't guys that I just see when I'm hanging out at a local restaurant. I see a ton of 5'10", 180-pound guys everywhere. You don't run into a bunch of 6'4", 285-pound monsters of men. So that's important to me when I'm watching professional wrestling. Just like I don't like my pro football players to all be tiny. That doesn't mean that guys don't transcend these attributes, but what it means is that's what I'm looking for. That's what is important to me. And last on my list is just pure wrestling ability. So I believe a casual fan like myself, mic skills, look, size, then wrestling ability. The flips, the punches, the flippy flips, the floopy flu, all that stuff, all these things you name off, they're not important to me. Like, you just have to be able to wrestle up to a certain point. It has to be believable, and that's it. That's good enough for me. John Cena's good enough for me. John Cena's wrestling ability was good enough for me. He sells me on it. I think that IWC fans, they see this a very different way, and this is why we continue to butt heads. This is why we don't see eye to eye, is because we don't see things the same way. I think the IWC tends to see these attributes as the most important is wrestling skills. 100%. The live or die is when I say this person's a good wrestler, Britt Baker's a good wrestler, they go, she can't wrestle. And they mean wrestling skills. So number 1 for IWC is wrestling skills. Number 2 for the IWC is still wrestling skills, because that's how much importance that this internet wrestling community puts on the ability to do the flips, on the ability to do the holds. How many grapples can you do? How many suplexes, how many backbreakers, all those things is extremely important to the IWC. Then I think the IWC tends to pay attention to the look of a character, right? They like characters as well, even if they try to say, no, we don't need characters. I think they like characters, because I look at Jungle Boy, right? And I apply this to Jungle Boy, and I go, wrestling skills are there. He has a look, but they don't place importance on the mic skills. They don't care if you can talk. They don't care how big you are. I look at Darby Allin, right? Wrestling skills. It's there. I mean, it's reckless, but it's there. His look. I admit, like, Darby Allin's got a cool look, but he can't talk on a microphone, and his size isn't there. So I think the IWC, they just place different priorities on attributes. Wrestling skills, looks, and then they really don't give a shit about your mic skills or your size. Every so often a guy has good mic skills, they acknowledge it, but they don't. Like, MJF gets shit on by a lot of the IWC. They go, fuck him. All he can do is talk. He's another Miz. I don't see it that way. I place a high amount of admiration for someone like MJF, who when I watch, he makes me pay attention. And that's really, I think, the difference in the IWC and what makes a casual fan. It's why I identify as a casual fan. I think just in kind of wrapping that all together, the WWE product aligns more with what I find entertaining in pro wrestling. That's why I tend to be more pro WWE. I don't think I'm necessarily anti AEW. I might be a little bit, but I try not to be anti AEW. So as a casual fan, I think I just like pro wrestling is all inclusive of these things, these 4 skills, and WWE tends to be a little bit more of what I look for in professional wrestling. So with that, we can get into question number 1. This all kind of led into exactly what question number 1 is talking about this week. So question number 1 this week is, Notorious, it seems like your show seems to skew to a pro WWE point of view most of the time. I am a big fan of both AEW and WWE. Why do you hate AEW? Like I said, I don't think I hate AEW. I think I dislike that AEW and its hardcore fan set, they portray AEW to be something that it's actually not. And when that doesn't work out, when they use those metrics to portray it as something and that gets disproven, then they just move the goalpost on us. 1 minute, AEW is the place where the wrestlers all go to get creative freedom. That's where they're happiest, right? Is if they're in AEW, they get creative freedom and they're happy. Next, this is the real wrestling company. This is where real wrestlers go. This is where the guys who can do the suplexes and the flippy flips, they go to AEW. When that's disproved, then we move on to, well, no, this is just kind of the indie grunge feel wrestling. This is kind of the bowling alley grunge, as CM Punk says. We got the indie vibe. And then when that gets disproven, it's what is the next goalpost that we have to disprove when we talk. AEW is just a secondary product. That's what it is. It's a smaller wrestling company, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There is an anti-WWE sentiment from the AEW crowd. It exists on the WWE side as well, but it's definitely not as rampant. I've gone on record as saying I am a fan, and I talked about this in the opening segment. I am a fan of the pro wrestling experience, and that encompasses more than just the suplexes and the flips. That includes the promos, the wrestling, the lights, the pyro, all of it. I enjoy the entertainment of the wrestling business, every aspect of it. And it seems to me from time to time that AEW as a company and AEW as a hardcore fan base almost push an agenda of being anti-casual wrestling. We don't want your kind. They don't want me to be a fan. Because every time I start to sniff like I could like this, it feels like the audience pushes me away. It feels like the company pushes me away. It even feels like some of the wrestlers tend to say things that push the casual fans away. Example, Bryan Danielson. Nothing I'm about to say about Bryan Danielson is meant to be negative because I don't think this is a knock on him. But Bryan Danielson seems to be the ultimate anti-mainstream pro wrestler. Stay with me because I know he's been mainstream. But he calls fans fickle because we're not enamored with the X's and O's. You go out there, you put on a hell of a match and the crowd's not behind it because the story's not there. Because the emotional attachment's not there. Nobody made me care. That's not fickle. That's just how we react. That's just how we react. We react to what we see. And then Bryan Danielson went on to say that he was forced into doing the yes chant at times in his career. And I get it. Like Bryan Danielson comes off to me as the ultimate guy who probably would wrestle in a gymnasium in front of 10 people and be completely fine with it. And that's okay. So I'm okay with him saying things like this. But other guys in AEW, I think they try to take this same vibrato and it doesn't work because they would cash the WWE check. I truly believe, like, Bryan Danielson has made a lot of money. He made a lot of money on the yes chant stuff. But I think he would turn it all in just to be a wrestler. He would give it all up. He just likes the wrestling. And so I think Bryan Danielson's right now, he is the avatar for what AEW is looking for. Except that AEW continues to try to compare itself to WWE and continues to make comments. And Tony Khan continues to go, oh, WWE's getting better. Their shows are getting better. Stop comparing yourself. I don't like that. The other thing I have a problem with in AEW is that some of the wrestlers seem to be out of touch with the mainstream audience. You get people like Thunder Rosa, who, when the crowd doesn't react the exact way she wants them to, she throws around words like, the crowd's bullying me. They're bullying me because they're saying that I'm sandbagging. No, I've watched the match. I've watched the match numerous times. I went back and watched the match before I wrote this because I knew if I said this, I needed to be able to stand behind it. And I stand behind this 100%. Thunder Rosa was either sandbagging or she's just really bad at her job. I don't think she's really bad at her job. So I do believe that at that point in time, she was sandbagging. So to be out of touch and to make a t-shirt and to think that you're like a marketing genius and you're spinning this around and you're turning the joke on the fans, you're just out of touch. You're out of touch. And that kind of stuff just seems to align more with AEW because there's not a bigger entity going, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. And kind of the last reason, and I think this is the reason that most casual wrestling fans fall into when they lose touch with AEW, is it's the IWC AEW hardcore elite fans. There's a group of fans who basically just make it impossible to be engaged. If you just never got on the internet, you could avoid these people. But if you do get on the internet and you choose to have criticism for AEW, whatever that be, they're going to attack you because they will not accept any form of criticism for AEW. It's just, you cannot criticize the product. If you say that AEW wrestlers are too small, they attack you. They're mad. Even though it's truthful. Even though if you go down the roster in AEW and look at the size of the wrestlers, they're all small. They're all small. When like Luchasaurus is your biggest wrestler and he's 6'3", they're all small, 6'4", whatever. If you mention that AEW has signed just a bunch of WWE guys, they attack you. They tell you, oh, no, we didn't. It's only 25% of the roster, whatever it is. Oh, no, we didn't sign just, or what they tell you is, they tell you, well, those were guys that were misused in WWE. Okay, but you still signed them. You still did you still went the hypocritical route. Tony Khan never had to say out loud. He never had to put this out into the universe. I'm not going to go around and sign a bunch of ex-WWE guys. He didn't need to say that because the guys that they signed, I would have signed them too. I have no problem with you signing Bryan Danielson, Claudio, Malachi Black, Adam Cole. I think those are great acquisitions, but you can't pretend to be a homegrown company and then wonder why all of these people question the hypocrisy when you go out and do the exact opposite of what you say. And it makes me wonder at this point in time, because now we're treading into some new waters here with some of these former WWE guys starting to maybe whisper a little bit that they're not happy in AEW, that the grass wasn't greener on the other side. You see the Miros and the Andrades who seemingly are unhappy, and they've liked tweets that were stating that maybe they were better off in the WWE. Then you have people like Dustin Rhodes, Goldust, whatever he goes by these days in AEW, who's running around sending out mixed messaging. This is all because it's not a cohesive unit right now. And so he's running around telling the world, look, if these wrestlers aren't happy, get the fuck out of here. Okay, that's cool. That's kind of a shitty way to treat someone who just might be a little disgruntled. But then on top of that, he's running around and he's yelling out, we're going to do 2-day pay-per-views. He's got all this information. And Tony Khan has to come back a couple days later and play cleanup to all this misinformation. He goes, no. The vibes are good. The vibes are good in the locker room. And we're not doing 2 days events. I don't know what he was talking about. Look, man, where there's smoke, there's fire. Either these people are unhappy and you talked about 2 days events, or this guy's going senile and he's just saying crazy shit. But one way or the other, it's a plethora of misinformation coming out of AEW, and it's hard to follow. There's a lot to like about AEW. I want to watch CM Punk. I do, because CM Punk, there's a nostalgia. I like CM Punk. I don't necessarily like Philip the person, but as a wrestler, I think CM Punk is one of just all-encompassing the best wrestlers of all time. I do believe that. As much as I hate on him and I say negative things, when you take every aspect, being able to cut a promo, being able to wrestle, his look, I never thought he was undersized. I know people have called him undersized, but CM Punk is one of those people. I'm a big Britt Baker fan. I've said it over and over. I really, really, really like Britt Baker. I like Jade Cargill. I like MJF. I'm crossing my fingers right now that they either figure out what the fuck to do with MJF, get him back in the ring so I can see him on TV, or they just cut him loose and let him go to WWE and we see what WWE can do with him. But I truly believe if Tony Khan would just humble himself a little bit, just maybe humble himself and shut the fuck up for 5 minutes and just enjoy the ride that he's on, because he's doing a half-ass good job running this company. It's definitely, it's trending upwards and not downwards to me as far as just a good secondary product. But Tony Khan seems to get in his own way more often than not. He puts his foot in his mouth too often. He says things that don't need to be said out in public. I think he just likes the attention. And Vince McMahon liked the attention. I get it. These guys are narcissists. But to yell out, we aren't signing WWE guys, and then to sign every ex-WWE guy he could get, that's hypocrisy, right? AEW at one time felt like it kind of had a homegrown feel, and that feeling is gone. You watch AEW, you watch Dynamite or Rampage now, it's 50% ex-WWE guys. Or some form of WWE pedigree. There's a through line, and I don't care. You call it, oh, these guys made names somewhere else. That's fine. Whatever you want to choose, but it's getting hard to watch an AEW show and not at least see guys that you recognize from a WWE ring. We are about 3 weeks into the Triple H creative era, and people are definitely taking notice. What are some of the major and subtle changes that you have seen while watching the WWE lately? I think the easiest thing you notice when you just look at the last 3 weeks is purely, it's simple. I break it down. It's just direction. It feels like there's a plan. It feels like they're sticking to a plan. It feels like they know the destination, and now they're telling the story on how we get there. Certain guys are benefiting. Certain guys are suffering. Look at Elias or Ezekiel. Looks like he might have been written off TV. I'm not sure what they're doing there, but guys are going to suffer. And you can sense that Triple H kind of has, it feels like Triple H has been watching from the shadows while Vince was in charge. And so it feels like Triple H has always had this plan, and that maybe him and Vince didn't see eye to eye, but it feels like, to me, if I just broke it down in the simplest terms, maybe musical terms even, Vince McMahon was freestyling, and Triple H, he's writing structured songs. Triple H has a chorus. He has a hook. He has a verse. He has an intro. Vince McMahon was just out there freestyling. It was just, he showed up and it's like, hey, let's just make this up as we go. And I think that's what we're feeling. That's the difference we're feeling when we watch these last couple weeks. Because, direction is a funny thing. And it's easy to execute a plan. I'm not going to overreact to Triple H. I'm excited for Triple H, but I'm not going to overreact. Because in the first quarter of any sport, in any game, it's easy to stick to the game plan that you've been dreaming about all week, all month, right? First game of the season. It's easy. It's easy to be exciting. It's easy for Triple H to do this. What I want to see is when we get to the fourth quarter, when we get 6 months, we get a year out from this, can he keep the same energy? Because you can't have a surprise every week. You can't do it. Right now, WWE is back to being the pretty popular girl in pro wrestling. Everything's firing on all cylinders. They're the biggest draw. They're the biggest production. And it looks like even the IWC is talking a lot about the WWE. It's the first time in a long time I've seen a lot of people go, I haven't watched WWE in a long time, but I'm going to give Triple H a chance. To me right now, Triple H is basically the Anakin Skywalker of professional wrestling. He's bringing a balance to the force from a casual and an IWC perspective. We're getting longer wrestling matches, but they're interesting. They have meaning. They're not just there for no reason, so I'm paying attention. Now, if you want to dive deeper, And you have to. You can't just say it's direction. But if you want to dive deeper and look at the minutia changes, you can dissect the Triple H product even deeper. And here's what I really think is the key to what Triple H is doing. Instead of writing like this is professional wrestling, like they've written the last 20 years, Triple H has adapted and he's writing these shows more like their HBO or Netflix series. He's writing for TV. He's writing for a 2022 audience, for the mind span, the attention span that we have. These shows are all ending with cliffhangers. They're ending with big moments that are sinking their teeth into us. All of a sudden, we end the show and Dexter Lumis is arrested, but there's no mention of what was going on. We'll find out next week what that was all about. And there's a subtle through line that's kind of weaving itself through the entire episode that if you don't pay attention, you're missing things. These are all things that end up being water cooler talk. These are things that people talk about the next day. These are things that people get anxious for next Monday night. For the first time in a long time, I left Monday Night Raw, left the watching experience excited. And for the first time ever, I rewound the show. I got off Monday Night Raw. I looked up, what the fuck was that? Who was that? Oh, that was Dexter Lumis. Okay. So then I rewound the show and I went back and watched some of those promos again. I missed all that stuff. Man, I missed all that stuff. And that's what Triple H is doing. He's getting me, I'm ingrained in the product. And then after that, I went on Peacock and I looked up Dexter Lumis NXT work. Because I'm not familiar with Dexter Lumis. I knew who he was, but I'm not familiar. And I go, oh shit, he's got me so engaged with this product. I'm looking and watching things I've never watched. And now this through line and this arc that is going through the entire episode has me engaged, and I'm excited for next week. And also, he's got people like Kevin Owens. It's not necessarily breaking the fourth wall, but Kevin Owens is saying things that we know to be true. Everybody's watching WWE right now. That's why I did what I did. That's why I got rid of Ezekiel. And I think that was in a subtle way. There was a subliminal shot there. I think the Ezekiel thing was a little bit of a Vince McMahon product. And I think that was Triple H kind of telling the smarter audience, hey, I know that was good. It couldn't survive without Kevin Owens. We're going to bury that. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to get Kevin back to where Kevin needs to be. Kevin Owens is about to be a monster again. Ciampa is being given the spotlight to succeed. Rumor is that Triple H is out here sicking Shawn Michaels on people like Johnny Gargano. Killer Cross is now on SmackDown. Bayley's faction feels fresh. But not only just her faction, I feel like that faction it's breathed a new life into Bianca Belair, Asuka, and Alexa Bliss. I feel everything feels new again. And all it took was just a few Triple H tweaks. I don't know if we have enough of a sample size yet, but it feels like the direction we're going, it feels like there's less start and stop. It feels like less of like, we're going to start the story and the next week we're not even going to talk about it. It feels like Triple H has a destination that he's taking us to, and we're along for the ride, and it's not going to be a bumpy one. It's going to be smooth. There's going to be casualties. Ezekiel might be dead. We don't know. Apparently he's in the hospital. But in order to let KO be the KO that we really want, there's going to be sacrifices. You have to lose some of those things. I said really early on in the Ezekiel character, I don't know how this character works without Kevin Owens, because this is basically just an extension of the Kevin Owens story. Kevin Owens is selling the Ezekiel character to us. And once he's not part of it, how does that continue to work? I don't know. I ask myself, I don't know. There's a content creator. Most of y'all probably know him. He's an awesome dude, Sledge. He's on TikTok. He's on Twitch. If you don't follow him, go follow him. But he asked a question. He asked a lot of good questions. But he asked a question, and most of the time, I tend to try not to get involved in other people's content because I sometimes think it skews what I say. But I do pay attention when Sledge talks. And I listen to this question, and I'm probably going to butcher it. Forgive me, Sledge. I'm going to do my best. I didn't write it down. This is all off the top of my fucking head. But he asked, if everything that's happening right now was still happening, but it wasn't Triple H in charge, if it was actually Vince McMahon making these changes, will we still be giving this much credit? Now, I can only speak for me. I can't speak. a lot of times I speak and say everybody, but I'm going to speak for me. I can speak for me and I say, as a casual fan, I've never really even thought about creative that much. I haven't thought about who's booking the show. I kind of just imagined there was a room of writers and they knew what's best and it was my job to stay out of it. It wasn't until I started doing this podcast that I really kind of got smart to the idea that like one man can affect this thing. Vince McMahon definitely had an effect on it, but I don't know that when Vince McMahon was in control, I ever blamed him for the product. I just enjoyed the product for what it was. Now Triple H has showed me a better product. I definitely praise him for that, but I don't think it's because of Triple H. I've never been a huge Triple H guy. I think I've jumped onto the Triple H train, but I don't think so. So if I was answering Sledge's question, I think so. I think if Vince McMahon made these changes and all of a sudden the product changed, even though they're so not Vince McMahon changes, they're so anti-Vince McMahon that it would be hard to see him doing it. But if he did do it, I would have been happy. I would have got behind it. So yeah, I mean, I guess just overall the change in the guard has kind of, it's been a good thing. I don't know that we saw it coming. We didn't know it was going to happen, but it feels like right place, right time. Unfortunate events, but it's got us a fresh WWE product, and I like the direction that the ship is headed. And I don't care who's captaining the ship. As long as the ship is headed in the right direction, I really don't care who is the captain of that ship. So last week on SmackDown, Liv Morgan came out to do another in-ring interview instead of a standard like by herself promo. And during her her interview, the crowd pretty much turned on her and began booing her. Kayla Braxton was visibly frustrated and afterwards even said, "I was annoyed by the disrespectful chants towards our SmackDown Women's Champion." I have two questions here. A, should Kayla Braxton care how the WWE Universe responds to Liv Morgan? And B, why do you think the WWE Universe is booing Liv Morgan? Kayla's a grown woman. She can do and say whatever she wants. But in the moment, getting emotional or directly showing emotion and basically having a shoot reaction, because that's what she did. That's a shoot reaction. When you're in that ring and somebody is cutting a promo, you are a participant. You're an actor. You're another member of the cast. And for you to give a shoot reaction feels to me to be a little bit unprofessional. If the crowd turns, you go with it. You embrace it. You got to ride that wave. As far as Liv Morgan goes, I don't understand the big deal with her getting booed. This is how WWE booked this. This is, if this, look, there's a lot of smart people back there. I think that Triple H is a smart person. If any of them thought it wasn't going to go this way, they missed the fucking mark on this one. She won her match in a heel way. That's what it was. When you get a pin, when someone's trying to submit you and you tapped out, that's a heel win. It's a cowardly way to win. And then they show us this video over and over, like 10 times they show us this video that we can all clearly see she tapped out before the 3 count. And then she comes out and insults our intelligence by telling us what you saw was wrong. That's heel tactics. She's lying. So now you won in a cowardly fashion. You're lying. You insult the audience's intelligence. Those are all heel motivations. Then when this crowd was on the cusp yelling, "You tapped out," I believe at that moment the crowd was teetering. You can take them either way. And she clapped back. She clapped back at the crowd. She got a little snarky with the crowd. She got a little smart ass with the crowd, and that was it. You turned them. You turned the crowd. You overreacted. She was visibly upset and she overreacted. Then to pour salt on the wound, somebody sent Sonya Deville out to basically inadvertently bury her by yelling, "You know you shouldn't be champion." Of something that there's about 50% of the audience that's already whispering, Sonya Deville yells that out. And I think that by doing that, she inadvertently might have turned Ronda Rousey back into the babyface in this situation, which I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. Here's the deeper problem. And this is a problem I talked about a long time ago that everybody gets pissed off when I talk about Liv Morgan, but here it is. This is the truth. We got to be honest. Liv Morgan has zero control over the crowd. The art of cutting a promo means you have the ability to take the crowd where you want to take them. Liv Morgan lets the crowd take her where they want to take her. They control her emotions. You could see her become visibly frustrated with the crowd. Same with Caleb Braxton. They became visibly frustrated because the crowd didn't give them the reaction that they wanted. People like Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, Edge, Jericho, MJF, Punk, those people know how to, they mold the crowd. They take the crowd where they want them to go. Punk is good at this. Jericho is good at this. Rollins is good at this. Becky's good at this. They can set them up one way and then slap them back the other way. You have to be able to control the crowd. I've said this for a long time. Liv Morgan's not ready for this. She's not ready for this. It's not a knock on her. She's young. She has time. But where do you build these skills? She has to build these skills. Liv's not ready for the main event spotlight. Not by herself. It's why they're putting her in interviews instead of promos. The amount of responsibility that comes with holding that belt, you can't get your feelings hurt when the crowd turns. You have to be able to react. Someone like Jericho takes that and goes, fuck it, I'm heel now. I'm a heel. That's cool. This is the way the crowd wants to respond. I'll run with it. Someone like Liv Morgan, who's not ready for this, gets nervous, gets scared, gets upset. She's not ready. And the problem for Liv Morgan is Liv Morgan was living in a fantasy world with a fantasy fan base. There was this group of WWE fans, probably more casual, who believed that she was better than she was, that she was more capable than she was. Liv can be good. There's no doubt Liv Morgan can be a great professional wrestler, but she has to be booked very carefully. And Ronda is literally the worst person in the world to put someone fragile like Liv Morgan up against. There isn't a person in the world who believes that Liv Morgan is going to beat Ronda Rousey in a fight. So the only way for her to win is to be heelish, is to have a cowardly ending, a heel type ending to that match. But I go one step further. Liv could be a likable heel. Liv could be in the position to do heelish things, but continue to be a fan favorite. She has that skill set to work the crowd in that way. And like I said, Liv can't have long-term success as a babyface. She doesn't have the wrestling skills. She doesn't have the mic skills. What Liv has is an amazing look. She has a good personality. She's seemingly liked. The crowd tends to get on her side. But to have a long-term babyface run, you have to have one of two things. You have to be able to be a wizard on a microphone. You have to be able to talk the crowd in any direction you want them to go in, or you have to have superhero believability in the ring. Guys like John Cena, right? It has to look like you can overcome any obstacle. It has to look like every time Liv Morgan steps in the ring, she is capable of beating Ronda Rousey. And at this point, I don't think we look at Liv that way. WWE booked Liv into this corner, and they have two choices now. There's only really two choices. Two choices as far as it goes for Liv. A, you now have to let her destroy Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. If you want to bring her back to this heel level, to this babyface level, if you want her to feel like a superhero, to feel like a true good guy, you can't, especially Shayna Baszler, which is unfortunate, you just can't protect her at all. You have to let Liv go out at Clash at the Castle and just put on a fucking clinic. Just destroy, clean finish. No questions asked. Liv Morgan, show that she's capable of beating somebody like Shayna Baszler. Then there's option B. Option B is embrace the heel turn. Fuck it, let's go. Let's let her be heel. Give her basically the gimmick that Lacey Evans was about to run with the crowd doesn't deserve me. The crowd doesn't deserve Liv Morgan. And just let her cheat her way to victory. Let her do these sketchy, underhanded things. And then I lied. There is a C. And this is what I would do. Get the fucking belt off of Liv Morgan. She's not ready. She's proven it. She's not ready. And this is not meant to be negative to Liv Morgan. She's not ready. She wasn't ready to have the spotlights turned on to her and to be the SmackDown Women's Champion. She got her moment. She got to feel. She got to taste it. You now know what it tastes like. Now go hone those skills somewhere. Put the belt on Shayna Baszler. It's just put the belt. Let Shayna win. Put the belt on Shayna Baszler. We can move forward. Extreme Rules, I believe, is the next one after Clash at the Castle. Shayna, Ronda writes itself. It's a hell of a match. Get Liv Morgan out of the spotlight. And I mean this sincerely. I'm about to say something, and I mean it sincerely, and I don't mean this as a negative, because I feel like whenever you say something like what I'm about to say, people tend to they clam up, they get sensitive. But Liv Morgan could benefit 100%. Liv Morgan could benefit with a trip down to NXT. And don't look at it as a demotion. But she needs to go down to NXT. And she needs to work with some people like Mandy Rose. Some of these people, some of these heels, in a place that's a little more protected. Let her win the NXT title. Let her grab a microphone every week and cut a promo every week. Liv Morgan needs to be talking every week in front of a smaller audience who's not going to judge and criticize every single little move she does, because that belt, that SmackDown women's belt before Liv, that's Charlotte's belt. So we have an expectation of the people who hold that belt are supposed to be at least in the atmosphere of Charlotte. Liv's not in that. She could get there, but she's not in that. In NXT, we're more forgiving. We could be more forgiving, because right now the NXT title is the closest thing we have to a mid-card women's belt in WWE. So I think you take Liv Morgan and you move her down and you let her talk every week, and she builds up that confidence, because there's a lack of confidence there. Don't get it twisted. Liv Morgan has a lack of confidence. And the crowd turning on her probably shattered what little bit of confidence she had left. So if I was WWE, if I'm Triple H, I go, Liv, I know like you're not going to want to hear this, but let's send you down to NXT. Let's let you have a good 6 months to a year. You grab that NXT title. You work the crowd. They're going to love you down there. They're going to love you, and they're going to embrace you, and you're going to get to talk week after week after week after week, and you're going to practice these promo skills. And when you come back to the main roster, you'll have every skill set that you need to actually have a successful title run. So AEW and THQ Nordic /Ukes released new information about the upcoming AEW video game called Fight Forever. We got screenshots, a short video, and cover art. With more info planned to be released on August 12th, what are your first thoughts on AEW Fight Forever? So I watched the little preview video they did with Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone. And it left me feeling a little bit conflicted. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, because video games is not really what this show is about. But it's a wrestling game and we got to talk about it. The problem for me is the look of the game. And I think that's the complaint. I heard HyperX say the same thing. The look of the game. This is 2022. This is next gen. We got PlayStation 5s. We got Xbox Series X's and S's. We've got these supercomputers. Your game can't look like this. And it looks a little sketchy. It looks a little dicey. And I made a video 4 or 5 months ago when we got that first little teaser that said, this doesn't look right. And the IWC, AEW hardcores, they attacked me and told me, you got to wait. This is too early to judge. Wait till we get closer to an actual release date, to the final product. It's going to look better. Here we are. It looks to be a lot more of the same to me. And I'm not necessarily a graphics person when it comes to video games. I'm okay if a game is just more fun than it is visually pleasing. But when you have a game like this, there's always the direct competitor. It reminds me of Tony Hawk and Skate. And that's okay. Like, I love Tony Hawk games. I also love Skate games. So there's room for both. My problem is, what scares me on this is if this game is everything they say it's supposed to be. If this is an arcade-style Nintendo 64 wrestling game, then fuck it. I'm in. I'm sold. Let's do it. What bothers me, that's not what I saw. What I saw looked to be more like Mario Party. It looked like the Mario Party of, like, what are the mini games? Why are there mini games? Anytime things like that are thrown into a video game, it scares me, because it almost feels like smoke and mirrors. It's like we couldn't get the game to feel enough of what we wanted it to feel like, so we're going to add some smoke and mirrors. Here's some mini games. Here's some other things you'll be able to do. Like, they talk about career mode, then they don't say anything about career mode. I know we're supposed to get more information tomorrow. Great. That's awesome. But I don't think, to me, honestly, when I look at WWE 2K22 and I look at this Fight Forever game, I still don't believe any video game company has figured out the right formula to make a wrestling video game that appeals to all the audiences. I still think, and this is kind of off topic, that there's room for a free-to-play wrestling video game where you just purchase the characters that you want, and it's a game of service, and you're constantly buying new wrestlers, and the themes stay up to date and things like that. Because that's one thing I've never understood, and I still can't understand with companies like 2K and WWE 2K22. Why can't they keep the games more up to date? Why are the games always feel so dated the minute they come out? Why are there guys that aren't in the right attires? Why is there music that's not correct? Those feel like things that should be, when a game comes out, it should be ready to go and ready to play and feel fresh. AEW Fight Forever has already said that their roster is not going to be complete. And WWE 2K22, when it came out, it felt dated. It was a pretty good game, but it felt dated. I don't get why can't 2K22 just give us new music when it comes out? It seems like just a download to just put a new song into the game or a new Titantron. I get that you have to scan people every time a new character is made, but there's these goddamn people making these characters in the character creator that look better than half of the ones we're scanning. So if you just gave us the music and the Titantrons to go along with that, it feels like we could make an accurate game. Fight Forever, I'll wait to see. I'll wait to see until I see more information. But I think, unfortunately, kind of like AEW, it's gonna fall short of what the audience expectation was. I think that the AEW hardcore have set the bar so high on what this was supposed to be that no matter if it's a great version of what it is, it's gonna feel a little bit like it's a letdown. In all corporate restructurings, there are casualties of new regimes. Triple H taking over creative has been beneficial to some of the former NXT talents like Ciampa and Killer Kross. We know some of the big names that Triple H is a fan of, but who do you think will suffer the most now that Triple H is in charge of WWE creative? And who are the biggest free agents that you think Triple H is looking at currently? So inevitably, there are always going to be people who benefit with regime change. The boss has new favorites, and there's always going to be people who kind of fall by the wayside. The boss will have his favorites, and the boss will have the people that he didn't understand why you were in the position you were in. And so when I look at this, and I look at the WWE roster, there's really three names that stick out, and there's a fourth one that I'm on the fence about. But the three names that stick out to me, number one is Liv Morgan. I think the clock started on Liv Morgan, and I talked about her in an earlier segment, but I think the clock started. Vince McMahon kind of always liked a good underdog story, even if it didn't make any fucking sense. And I think Triple H is more, his creative is more based in what the fans want and how the fans react to things. And I think based on this last week's reaction to Liv Morgan, unless she figures out how to right the wrongs, or unless WWE gives her the tools to make something of this situation she's been put in, I think she's on the clock. I think the mixed reaction she's getting is not the reaction that WWE wants from the SmackDown champion. I think that it's easy to see Triple H going, I like Shayna. Let's put the belt on Shayna. Shayna and Ronda right themselves. Let's push forward with a Shayna and Ronda. And Shayna there's potential for Shayna Baszler to end up being a monster heel. And to me, the women's division has been missing a monster heel, somebody who feels unbeatable. Ronda feels that way a little bit, but she's less homegrown and more MMA. I think Shayna could feel like the homegrown monster heel. The second person that I think is probably in a little bit of a danger under Triple H is Omos. The Giant thing is played out, and I've heard a couple people say this. The Giant thing is played out. Giants don't do well anymore because we don't necessarily buy into this guy's big, he doesn't move well, but one punch and you're down. It seems like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", that's the perfect size in wrestling now. We don't need 7-footers who can't move around. And we saw this when Omos was paired up with Bobby Lashley. Bobby had to step his game down wrestling-wise in order to make Omos look like he fit in. So where does Omos fit into any kind of long-term booking in WWE? He's not going to beat Brock Lesnar. He's not going to beat Roman Reigns. He's not beating Drew McIntyre. He's not beating Sheamus. And he's not beating Bobby Lashley on a regular basis. So where do you put him? Because he can't be in the ring with all these little guys. They move too fast. So what is his long-term position? I think he's in trouble. Lastly, I think we already saw the beginning of this, but I think Ezekiel's in trouble. I think the gimmick doesn't work long-term. Like I said, the gimmick doesn't work unless Kevin Owens is by your side, and Kevin Owens is bigger than that story. There's more for Kevin Owens to do. So as long as Ezekiel is here, we're always going to question where's Elias. I think hopefully we bring back Elias, because that gimmick seemed way more over than Ezekiel ever got on his own. So I think Ezekiel's definitely probably in trouble. Now, the last one, the one I said I'm on the fence about, and I may be wrong about this, and I don't think it's based on the whole this is Vince McMahon's guy, but I do think Theory's path has been altered. I think he was on the fast track to becoming a world champion, and I think Triple H is going to pump the brakes, as he should. Like I said with Liv Morgan, let these people develop. Don't shove him down our throat and make him the guy. Let Theory develop. And I think Triple H has a different plan for the world title picture. We see that with like Killer Cross and some of these new names coming in. I think some of those guys are going to slide in, and there's going to be more competition and less shoving guys down our throat. So I still think Theory has a very bright future. I just think that future may be played out over a longer period of time and more organic than it was kind of being shoved down our throat. As far as who is Triple H targeting in free agency, I'm not the guy to ask that question to. I don't have my thumb on the pulse of everybody that's available. When I saw this question, I immediately went to the internet and searched who are the free agents of pro wrestling. I didn't even think that list would exist, but on the website SEScoops.com, I was able to find a list of basically who the available free agents are. And half of the names are names I've never heard of, so I'm not even going to be good there. But I did see, like, when I looked, I think Braun Strowman is somebody. After you all told me that Braun Strowman wasn't available because of Control Your Narrative, then Killer Cross shows up, and I think that immediately wipes out that sentiment. I see all the rumors. I think Bray Wyatt is somebody he's targeting. I think Johnny Gargano is pretty comfortable. I can be comfortable in saying he's targeting him. I think that Paige is back on the table now that Triple H is in charge. I could see him bringing Paige in. I don't know if they need Paige, but it almost feels like they could bring Paige in just to keep her away from AEW. Because I still believe Paige is a dangerous tool in the hands of Tony Khan. She does get a lot of attention. Then there was one more name that I just thought was fun, and this was interesting to me. And he's not a free agent yet, but it's Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega's tended to kind of stay away from the WWE machine because he's always stated, I don't want to be that WWE robot. But now that Vince McMahon's gone and Triple H seemingly has kind of eased off of what used to be, here's a script, you go out and fucking read it, to here's generally what we're trying to portray. You go make this into your own thing. I think Kenny Omega could see. His contract apparently is up in 2023 unless he signed a longer deal that I don't know about. But I could see him coming in and going, I need this to solidify my career. And I know people all the time go, I don't need this, but he does need this. You need this. He needs a WrestleMania moment. I feel like he needs a WWE title, a world championship. He needs one. He needs one run with it. And I could see him coming back for one good run where he wins the title, where he's able to kind of have his WrestleMania moment. And I think it would be fun. And I'm playing Fantasy Booker. This may not even be a possibility, but I think that would be a fun name for Triple H to target. And I don't think it's too far-fetched. Because let's say Cody Rhodes, he kind of made a splash when he came to WWE. So you see that and you go, okay, I can do this. If MJF hasn't already, let's pretend that MJF has not signed a new AEW contract. I think he has, but let's pretend he didn't. And let's pretend that in January, Triple H is able to sign him and he becomes part of WWE and he blows the fuck up and he has this amazing fucking run. And then Kenny Omega goes, hold on. All these guys, they're jumping over to WWE and there's this opening and there's this spot and there's this want for new talent and new people. I think that if the chips fell the correct way, that Kenny Omega could go, I've got one run in me. in WWE. All right, WWE finally announced the brackets for this women's tag team tournament they've been talking about for the last month and a half. The question for me was, what do you think of the pairings involved, and who do you think is ultimately going to win this tournament? So I have a picture of these teams here. It's Tamina and Dana, which they're already eliminated. Io Sky and Dakota Kai, Alexa Bliss and Asuka, Nikki Ash and Doudrop, Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah, Xia Li and Shotzi, Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark, Natalya and Sonya Deville. This is exactly what I said they needed to do. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I called this. Just start pairing people together. They don't need to be tag teams. Let's establish tag teams as we go. That's what they did here. I like the pairings. It makes sense. Alexa and Asuka was a natural pairing. They've been working together on TV. Nikki Ash and Doudrop have been a team. Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah, I believe there's a reason they're together. Xia Li and Shotzi, there's just a standard bad guy tag team. Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark. I don't know a lot about Zoe Stark, but I know Nikita Lyons has drawn a lot of attention on social media. And Natalya and Sonya Deville, once again, just two solid heels. So how do I think this plays out? How do I think this tournament plays out? There's only one way to book this tournament. As far as I'm concerned, I can look at this tournament and with an extreme amount of confidence, I believe I know how this tournament should and will play out. And that is Io Sky and Dakota Kai. They already run their first match. Called it, knew that was happening. There was zero chance they weren't winning that match. Alexa and Asuka, they're going to beat Nikki ASH and Doudrop. They're going to. There's no reason they don't. The storytelling's there. It's just furthering the story of Dakota Kai and Io Sky, Alexa and Asuka. So that makes sense. Which leads to a showdown between the two teams, which ultimately I believe is won by Io Sky and Dakota Kai. They go to the championship thing. They've got a lot of heat on them right now. The crowd seems to like this new Bayley group. So there's no reason to slow them down. I don't think Asuka and Alexa Bliss are a long-term pair. I've said numerous times, I don't even think Alexa Bliss was originally intended to be a part of this group. I think she's playing the role of Becky Lynch right now. So on the other side of this bracket, I think we have Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah. And I said earlier that they're paired together for a reason, and that reason is to protect Raquel Rodriguez, because I don't think that this group is making it out of the first round. I think that Shotzi and Xia Li are going to upset them. I think that Aaliyah is going to take the pin. I do believe it could start some kind of arc between Aaliyah and Raquel that once again just further makes, Raquel look strong, and she'll punish Aaliyah. And however, I'm not confident on the way that goes. But I do think Shotzi and Xia Li move out of the first round. Then I think Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark, I think they upset the heel team of Natalya and Sonya Deville. Natalya and Sonya Deville have zero reason to win that match. They don't need it. And if you have Shotzi and Xia Li, you need a face team. You need a fresh team to face them. So when you get there and you have the NXT girls and you have Shotzi and Xia Li, once again, I think the NXT girls take that match. And so now we have the NXT girls who now have put a ton of spotlight on the NXT product. And we have Dakota Kai and Io Sky. And I think that Io Sky and Dakota Kai walk out of there the tag team champions and are immediately confronted by Sasha Banks and Naomi. And it sets up, beautifully a story for those two to come back to that has a ton of meaning. Because that's all they were ever looking for. They were looking for a story that had tons of meaning. So they come back, they're ready to go. And I think that it kind of writes itself. The NXT girls, they're not winning this tournament, but it gets them a ton of exposure and it gets eyes on them so they can go back to NXT and they take an audience with them. So if I don't think there's any other way you can write this. This is how it has to be written. You get ton of exposure. You bleed out a ton of exposure for the NXT girls. And then you get the tag team titles on a credible tag team that has a little history now. And Sasha and Naomi come in, and now all of a sudden you have a women's tag team division that makes sense and can have some longevity. There have been quite a few stories and pictures coming out of the C2E2 event this week where a few of wrestling's biggest names were there to do meet and greets. One of the major stories was Sasha Banks not allowing fans to get near her during the paid photo shoot opportunities. what do you think of Sasha Banks' distance policy? And what do you think of photo ops in general? So I'm going to kind of work through this as we go, because I try to write notes, but I'm on both sides of the fence. I can make an argument for both sides. I can make an argument for Sasha Banks, and I can make an argument against Sasha Banks. One thing I want to do is lay out basically the specifics of what I believe to be true before I make an opinion. So I believe that people were told they needed to stay 6 feet away from Sasha Banks when it was their turn to take a photo with her. And I believe that those photos costed $90. I do believe that if you wanted a photo with Sasha Banks and Naomi, you paid $130, and there was still a 6 foot rule. These are just facts. These are facts that I've pulled up, that I've got through Twitter, got through different websites. I do believe that Naomi had no issue with people getting close to her. So Naomi did not have the 6 foot rule. And I do believe that Sasha Banks relaxed her rule a little bit for certain people, which is interesting. So, with all those facts, I think there's blame to go all around when it comes to photo shoots and photo events and photo opportunities. There's a lot of creepy fucking people, especially guys. There's a lot of creepy guys in this world. And I've seen my fair share of Twitter pictures where fans are basically groping celebrities. They've gotten way too close. And there's a social contract. People have a social responsibility to not be complete asshats, yet they break that all the time. Given the opportunity, they invade a person's personal space and they just, like, I paid $90, you fucking belong to me. And the problem is there's nuances to that, right? It's a transactional exchange. I'm paying $90 for access to you. I'm paying $90 for a photo with you. And I think that, here's the thing. I think rules are necessary. You have to have rules. I'm 100% on board with a no touching policy. Don't touch. Keep your fucking hands to yourself. You don't need to put your arm around any female or male celebrity that you are not in a direct relationship with. You do not know that person. Keep your fucking hand to yourself. Especially if you're over the age of 13, you don't need to touch them. Kids may want to get a hug. I get it. These are the superheroes to them. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. Keep your hands to yourself. I feel the same way about adults who go to Disneyland. I like Disneyland, but I don't need to hug Elsa. I don't even need to fucking meet Elsa. That's for kids. I can see Elsa with my eyes, and that's enough I needed to see. There's never a reason, ever, to grab or touch another person that you're not in a relationship with, or that is not a direct member of your family. You don't need to touch them. Now, I do understand, 100%, if I just paid $90 of my hard-earned money, I worked my real ass job, and I come to see you, and you tell me I need to stand 6 feet away for my photo op, that's ridiculous. That's bullshit. I mean, that's the exact opposite extreme of being an asshat for touching someone, is saying you need to stay 6 feet away. You need to pay me $90 to take a photo with me, but then you need to stay 6 feet away. At $90 a photo, I saw the amount of people were there. Sasha Banks can hire a security guard to stand next to her in case anybody breaks that rule. In case somebody gets too touchy, that security guard should step in and give a nice little reminder and remove that person from the space as to why there are rules and why you don't break the rules. I'm completely okay with that. You break the rule, you pay the price. You get punished. I have to believe that at least when you go to enter your credit card information, you're going to pay for this $90 Sasha Banks experience, which is probably $90 on top of, I don't know what it costs to get into this event, but I guarantee you the tickets weren't free just to get in the door. I've been to these things. It costs money. You're not leaving there spending less than $250. So if when I put my credit card information in, there's not a giant warning that pops up that says, hey, when you buy this Sasha Banks experience, you need to be 6 feet away. If that doesn't exist, I have a problem. You deserve your money back. If you didn't see that, if you're showing up to the event and you're just finding out, that's weird. It's a weird give and take of being celebrity. And I think the problem is at a certain point, Sasha Banks has probably had to go through too many bad encounters. There's too many creepy fucks who have broken that rule. And the easiest solution for Sasha Banks was, 6 feet. And I even think that Sasha Banks was playing the game of, I look at the next person in line. Oh, they're cool. They can get a little closer. That person, they feel like a 6-footer. I feel like that's the game she's playing. Look, firemen get burned. Policemen get shot. People in the military get shot. Every job has risk. Every job has risk. Being a celebrity does put you in some awkward situations. You should never get touched inappropriately. I don't believe that's even should be on the table. But on the flip side, you also shouldn't get scammed into taking a $90 photo from 6 feet away. There's a middle ground. I saw CM Punk was hugging people. You don't have to hug people, but that's how he chose to play that event. And he's kind of a germy-phobia guy, and he was okay with it. I saw Naomi get close up with fans. I don't know that she was touching, but she was standing next to them. The problem is, I think that a few bad apples ruin the experience for everybody. And Sasha's probably, her level of fame, I believe, is even bigger than CM Punk on, I believe that women celebrities get a little more of a fanatical following than men. Men, like, we all like CM Punk and we're like, hey man, what's up? We'll dap him up and say what's up. There's a lot of creepy fucks who, like, when they get the opportunity to get next to Sasha Banks, they're trying to feel something. And that's weird. I don't fucking get it. But I mean, just the truth is just like, I don't know. It feels icky all the way around. It does feel like a no touching policy. Photo ops are weird. They really are. Because we idolize people, and I've done it. In my 20s, I went to WrestleMania and took photos with people. Now that I'm 37 years old, I have no desire to take a photo with someone. But it's to each their own on who wants to take a photo, who wants to get an autograph. The simple thing is just keep your fucking hands to yourself. You don't need to be touching people. You don't have to be gross. And as far as Sasha Banks goes, like if you don't like this, don't do it. Just don't do photo shoots. And I get, like, right now you're in a weird position because you left WWE, but that may be the way you make your money now. It is doing that. So I don't know. I'm glad. Sometimes I'm just glad that I'm a dude and I don't have to worry about that kind of shit. But photo shoots in general, they're just weird fucking situations. That is it for today, though. This has been another episode of the CWC Wrestling Podcast. Next week, Lauren will be back, and I won't have to do this all by myself. It was a little more difficult doing it like that. I feel like I'm talking to myself, but that's okay. Make sure to tune in every week on either YouTube or Spotify. Please leave me a comment on this episode and tell me how good I did by myself. Also, make sure to follow us on TikTok if you don't already. Just search for The Notorious Nerdy D. I am going to be posting in the next couple of days a pilot episode of a wrestling game show that we're attempting to do. It's a pilot. Be easy on us. It's not a finished product, but I do want feedback. I want you guys to tell me what you like, what you don't like about it. Let me know so we can kind of craft it and make it into something. And I want you guys to participate. I want people to come on. There's going to be the ability to come on the game show. So we're working it out. We'll workshop it all together. So I want you guys check out that video and let me know what you think. As always, I am the Notorious Nerdy D. Level Up Lauren will be back next week, but I'm gonna ring the final bell for him. Hosted by Notorious Nerdy D. Dope show that you gon' find. Tune in 'cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like the show, but you should already know the Casual Wrestling Community Show. Let's go. Yeah, Notorious Nerdy D. Woo.